Hello and welcome to U.S. Cricket Now, the podcast covering all things Major League Cricket. I'm Peter Della, Penna, and with me is Aaman Patel.
Yeah, and coming up, we take a look at the results between the Los Angeles Knight Riders and the San Francisco Unicorns, where the Knight Riders, they snuck through a victory that felt like it should have been much easier than it was.
Tonked away into the night, and the Spice Man raises his arms aloft.
We'll also review the rest of the July 4th action from the weekend, and we reveal our non-playoff team of the tournament.
Don't forget to follow U.S. Cricket Now on Instagram, X, and TikTok. And you can watch us on YouTube. Just search U.S. Cricket Now. Now, Aaman, what a way to cap off the regular season. That's if you're a neutral party, I suppose. If you're a Unicorns fan, you must be thinking, what on earth is going on? 6 wins in 6 matches to start off the season. They are the first team to clinch a playoff berth. And yet, if they're going to get back to the final, Aaman, they're going to have to do it the hard way because they lose tonight's game to the worst team in the league, LA Knight Riders. And it means that the Unicorns finished 3rd on the table. They lose 3 out of their last 4. And how they did it, Aaman. Andre Fletcher with a century. Last time we saw the Spice Man score a century, retire out, and didn't quite work out for the Knight Riders. This time he continues on to make 118. They score a total of 243 for 3 and hold on by the skin of their teeth.
Yeah, I mean, it was an unbelievable game. You couldn't really explain what was happening. This was, like you mentioned, a Unicorns team that was the first team to qualify for the playoffs. Felt like it was going to be smooth sailing, and I think the given thought was there was really 0% chance the Knight Riders come away with a win coming into the day. But I look at this Unicorns team, and I don't know why. Maybe being in Florida, the moment I thought about really was Tim Tebow back in '08 when the Gators lost to Ole Miss. That year they ended up winning the national championship, and everyone was like, well, "How do you lose? You're supposed to be the undefeated national champions, and what this, that, the other." And he has that big post game speech where he says, "No player in the country. I promise you, no player in the country will work as hard as I will. No player in the country will push his team as hard as I will." And you're waiting for this to maybe result in that for the Unicorns. Finn Allen, he's had a dry run. The good news, Hassan Khan was scoring some runs. Sajjad Krishnamurti with his new high score of 92, nearly the first domestic to get to 100. And really throughout the weekend, they were just not as sharp as they needed to be. And not only did they lose games, they lost players. You lose Haris Rauf. It looked like he had a lower leg injury as well. And then today, we saw Romario Shepherd have to get carted off the field, which is not something you wanted to see for the Unicorns. They're 2 very key members of that team and their championship hopes, and that's a big blow for them. So they haven't just lost games this weekend, this Florida leg. They've lost key contributors to their success, Peter.
Big blow not having Haris Rauf on the field tonight, and you look at what that meant for them as their bowling lineup leaks 243, a huge total. Now, I say the Knight Riders show up in a big way. They only had 4 guys bat, and that was a big contributing factor. They didn't need to go all the way through the order. It wasn't just Andre Fletcher. Alex Hale is somebody who's been very anonymous all season long. 58 off 26 balls, 8 4s and 3 6s. Of all the days for him to step up and have a performance, just happened to be today for the Unicorns.
And even Karthik Gattapalli, gets in the game. Finally, the 25-year-old last seen, playing minor league cricket, playing the under-19 cricket for the USA back in 2017. In his first ever recognized T20 delivery, takes the wicket with a screamer from Alex Hales, and then a couple balls later, the former first-round pick for the LA Knight Riders has a stumping that he'll claim. I'm not sure he'll show the replay of it to many people, but he'll claim the stumping. And Gattapalli finishes 3 for 31. Also holds on to a catch, which was a problem today for the Knight Riders and throughout the season. Felt real bad for Shadley van Schalkwyk. It's tough with those lights. once the ball gets up in the air, you never really know what's going to happen when it comes down. You kind of lose sight of it, and the ball just kept following him around. But all in all, the Knight Riders will go home smiling.
Another reason why the Unicorns fell back out of the top 2 position, where you get 2 cracks at getting to the final, is not just a consequence of their own results, because you look at the fact that they beat TSK in a top-of-the-table clash. They hold on by 1 run to beat TSK over the weekend on the 4th of July itself. More consequential, Aaman, was the fact that net run rate came into it. The 2 teams finished level on 14 points, but it was a different game that played a huge role, and that was TSK's victory over the Orcas. TSK smashed Seattle. Their net run rate went way below MI New York, and then on the flip side, TSK's net run rate shot up dramatically, so much to the point that they finished with a net run rate of 1.603 to the Unicorns' 1.330, which, again, after opening night at Oakland Coliseum, the Unicorns had such a healthy net run rate advantage. By the end of the regular season, wiped out by TSK, and now TSK will go back to Texas in front of their home fans with 2 shots to get to the final.
Yeah, and TSK, it feels like they're peaking at the right time. Yes, Faf has been in tremendous form since coming off the Oakland leg. He's scoring hundreds galore. But you look at a guy like Shubham Ranjane, who's coming into that middle order. Remember, was discarded by the Seattle Orcas. They let him go and thought, okay, we got better options out there. And Texas said, thank you very much. We'll scoop him in the first round. 65 off 41 against those Orcas. Donovan Ferreira, that shortened match against the Freedom. How brilliant was he when they picked up 87 runs in just 5 overs, coming in from ball 1, hitting it around? And they haven't really had to rely on a Marcus Stoinis. They haven't really worried if Smith Patel scoring runs at the top of the order, if Saimo Kamala, if he scores 30 or not. They've had the consistent contributions. But for me, beyond just the batting, the biggest difference for me with the Super Kings has been the addition of Gil Hossein. We talked about it after the Dallas leg and how brilliant he's been. I thought in Florida he just showed his worth even more. He settles that team into such a great rhythm. I think he takes a load off of Noor Ahmed, knowing that he's not just the only spinner out there and the only one that's going to be destined to take wickets. But Akil Hussein's lengths so far in this tournament have been brilliant on wickets and in a league that it's been all about the batters, and the batters really just have their say no matter where the ball is pitched. He's taken advantage of conditions, and he's really changed and flipped the script. And he's been brilliant. Had, I think, 4 wickets throughout the week here in Fort Lauderdale, and he's felt like he's bowled better than that. That economy rate against the Orcas of 6. And I look at him, and this is back to the 2023 Akil Hussein that lit it up for the Washington Freedom, that you couldn't believe wasn't playing for them last year when they won the whole thing. And this, I think he combined with the rise and form of Ranjane from Ferreira, puts Texas in a really favorable position headed back home to Dallas for the playoffs.
Now, a team we haven't really talked about much in the context of how things shook out. Yeah, the Orcas went south. MI New York went north, 4 points behind at the start of the weekend, and they sweep the 2 matches against LA Knight Riders to vault into the final playoff spot. They both end up on 6 points, but it's MI New York who will go to the playoffs with a far superior net run rate. Now, the 2 matches that they had, the first one, MI New York trounced them by 8 wickets, chasing down a target of 155 with 13 balls to spare. And Monarch Patel, Nicholas Poran, both scoring half centuries in that match, as well as Trent Bolt, Aman's dark horse, if we will, draft pick. When we picked our teams in the tournament, he had been quiet for most of the season, but Aaman had very, very strong faith in him, and he was rewarded for 4 for 17 in that match, including wiping out the top order. But more interestingly, I think, is the rematch when MI New York held on by 6 runs, defending a total of 142. And at one stage, the Knight Riders needed 25 off 17. Sherfane Rutherford's going well, or he's picking up steam at least. He was 29 off of 24 balls. Unmuk Chand, 56 off of 45 at the end of the 18th over. And then nothing happened. Well, nothing happened for the Knight Riders. Kyron Pollard happened for MI New York. He gets Rutherford out. And then after conceding just 5 runs in the 19th over, Unmuk Chand, we saw a lot of strategic retirements over the course of the tournament, at least relative to other leagues around the world. Unmuk Chand gets retired out with 1 over to go when he's on 59 off 48. And they did that so that they could bring in Jason Holder. And Holder winds up getting just 2 singles off of the 2 deliveries he faced. I'm curious what your interpretation was of that sequence, Aman.
I thought that the strategic retirements would come at some point. I would have thought if you were to do it on a wicket that is not easy to get going very quick on, you would have done it maybe 2 overs earlier. I didn't mind it because Mukta wasn't finding the boundaries, but I also sat there and thought in the final over, it's 16 off 6. You're going to have a brand new bowler bowl. Might be all right to have a guy who's been out there for a little bit because you just need boundaries. You really don't need a lot of 6s. You hit 1 6, yeah, game's pretty set up for you, but you get just a couple of boundaries away and you're in your business. So, I think you could go either way on it. I probably would have done the retirement earlier if I were to do it. But with all that being said, we're not talking about, should they have done it or not without Ihsan Adil having maybe the over the tournament. I mean, to not bowl a single ball in that match, and then he comes in given 6 balls basically to secure playoff positioning. You lose this and you don't know what's happening with the playoffs. And he nails 6 perfect deliveries, including that final one. That was an absolute gem of a Yorker right on the back foot, that even knowing that you had to clear this one for a super over, all Big Dre Russ could do was get the bat down to save it from decastling leg stump. So whether you retire Unmukt or not, I'm not sure anyone's taking that one to the boundary rope.
What it did mean is that MI New York got that victory, and that's the victory that essentially has put them into the playoffs. And if you're the Orcas, you're left devastated that one. Kyron Pollard earlier in the match, 50 off 36 balls to top score for MI New York in a relatively low-scoring contest for them. I also want to talk about a guy that we've been missing for much of the season, or at least the first portion of the campaign in Oakland Coliseum. Naj Kenjige, 1 for 14 in the contest. He comes back. Now, overall, didn't blow anybody away statistically, but just the balance that he brings back to the squad. What has he meant to the MI New York resurgence to get them into the playoffs?
Yeah, I mean, it feels very similar to 23, right? He started to come back into the team. They started to find more success once he got in. And it's just the flexibility he gives you because he bowls in so many different positions. For the USA, he's open bowlings on numerous occasions. He can bowl in the back end. He can bowl in the middle. And he is very smart in how he utilizes his variations. And I think through minor league cricket, he's really developed his T20 bowling. Also tremendous in the field. Comes up with a couple of stops, put pressure on guys. And, I think that flexibility has been missing throughout the year because Sunny Patel, while he's had his moments, he's not as versatile as Naj Kenjige. You don't feel like you could open the bowling with the Sunny Patel. You don't really feel comfortable bowling him in the power play or in the last 5 overs. With Kenjige, yeah, I can go bowl him over 1. I can bowl him over 10. I can bowl him over 18. I can bowl over 19. I can give him the last if I wanted to. So that is the brilliance that Kenjige brings back into this New York side.
And what it means is that MI New York are going to have a match with San Francisco Unicorns on a Wednesday in the Eliminator. That is the second of 2 playoff matches. As the Unicorns, again, they fall back from first after 6 matches undefeated. They lose 3 of their last 4, so maybe MI New York can catch a team that's on a slight decline. Harris Ralph, will he be fit? That is yet to be determined, but this is a Unicorns team that looks slightly different than they did at the halfway point of the campaign. MI New York and Unicorns will play in the Eliminator, and then in the qualifier match that starts off the playoffs on Tuesday night, Texas Super Kings will be taking on Washington Freedom. Freedom top the table. The Super Kings officially second, but they're going to have a huge home crowd behind them at Grand Prairie Stadium to kick off the playoffs. Whoever wins that game goes straight to the final. The loser of that will face the winner of the MI New York San Francisco Unicorns clash. That game will take place on Friday night. So you'll have 2 playoff games to start off with. Then a rest day on Thursday, the second qualifier on Friday night. And then whoever wins that qualifier will take the second place in the tournament final that is set for Sunday night, July 13th at Grand Prairie Stadium in Texas. So that'll wrap up this week's action, and that sets up the playoffs in store in Grand Prairie, Texas.
Well, after the huge success of our draft teams of the season so far, we thought, you know what, we won't pin ourselves against each other because I might lose again. So I said, you know what, let's combine here, and we'll make a combined team of players that didn't make the playoffs. So this will be a combined 11, and let's go, Peter, for the folks at home, in order, in batting order. Let's do that just to make things easier. Obviously, we have just roughly about 30 odd guys to choose from. And Peter, I'll let you start things off again.
Well, teamwork makes the dream work. Didn't quite make the dream work for the Orcas or the Knight Riders, but maybe we can put our magic touch on there to bring up a team that might fare a little bit better. When you consider the domestic versus overseas balance, I think I would have to start off at the top of the order with... I don't like the fact that Unmuk Chand was retired out in such a huge contest, and then he was dropped for tonight's game. So even though he has more runs than Shayan Jahangir, I personally feel like I would put Shayan Jahangir in there at the top of the order. You might want to put a pick for Unmuk Chand to put him in at number 3. Maybe I'll leave that to you. But Shayan Jahangir, I feel like I've got to put him in at the top of the order from the.
Well, I feels like you might have to do Unmuk Chand at 3 yourself because I have to pick the second opener. So you get the third pick there. In the second spot, I was actually up in the air on who to put there. I thought maybe it's a domestic pair, but I think tonight's game is what swayed me. 2 centuries in the tournament, so you got to put the Spice Man, Andre Fletcher, to go open in the batting alongside the Orca in Shayan Jahangir. Some of the sixes he hit today were unbelievable. They were massive, and all of 38 years old and still striking it miles.
Oh, you're putting pressure on me. Unmuk Chand, out of all the players, he's second in runs of the available ones behind Shimron Hetmeyer. And I just can't get over the fact that he was left out and retired out.
You gotta pick him, Peter. You gotta pick him.
Something in me says no. There's something instinctive in me that says no. I can't. It's something that shouldn't happen to a guy. Maybe it does happen to a guy who finishes on the last place team.
Happened to Faf. That helps you. It happened to Faf. Remember, retired on 91.
Yeah, but they won that game. Unmuk, he had 350s on the season along with Hetmeyer, the most of the bottom 2 squads. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. In a domestic crop in these 2 squads where not much was happening domestically. I guess Unmuk, you can stay. We'll put you in at number 3, 302 runs on the course of the season, 350s. And an average of 37.75.
Yeah, I think that's the right pick. I think you made the right decision there, Peter. If I can ease some of the tension that you were feeling. At number 4, it's a couple places you could go, and I really am between 2 names. but I'm going to go with Sherfane Rutherford. I think he's just been a touch more consistent than maybe a Kyle Mayers, who is the other name that I had off the top of my head. He's been just a touch more consistent, touch more explosive. They both bat from the left, so you're not losing a lefty there anyway. And I just feel that he's just, when he's at his very best, he's striking it brilliantly. And he did come to form late in the season for the Knight Riders.
Well, one I don't have to think too hard about. Sherman Hetmeyer, really the stand-up player between the two sides. Put him in at number 5. Hetmeyer, 340 runs, top scorer between these two sides at an average of 68. He had an incredible run, 3 straight games where he was not out, and all 3 games the Orcas won.
Yeah, no brainer, slid in there. And I'm going to go with a guy who actually didn't bat in this position for most of the season. Typically, you'd find him batting right here at number 6 and feeling right at home, but he was promoted up to 3 for the back end of the season. It actually did wonders for him, but I still believe in big Andre Russell, the man from Jamaica. I know we got a little bit of an older team here, 37 years old for Jay Russ, 38 for the Spice Man, but we saw the runs that he was able to put on for the Knight Riders. The bowling for me in particular is why he kind of makes his way into the team. I thought that was his stronger suit throughout the season, very economical. I go back to that Texas game back on the 24th of June, I believe, where he took 3 wickets, had a high score of 65 on the season, unbeaten. And I think he'll slide into the team that didn't make the playoffs.
Thinking here, thinking where do I go from here?
Let me say something for you here. We've picked 4 overseas so far. So it feels like the bowlers are going to be domestic at this point unless you make a decision here.
Well, I think 2 of the domestic slots are self-explanatory, I think, as we go down the list. So we'll get to them. I'm just thinking at 7. Who do we put in at 7? I think based on the team balance, somebody who I think more for psychological purposes and the impact he had mid-season with the captaincy, I'll put in Sikander Raza, and a squad that lacked leadership in terms of 2 teams that finished in the bottom. The leadership change sparked 3 victories for the Orcas. I know on paper it might not mean a whole lot, but that 30 off 9 balls he had, I think even for that innings alone, that was a significant win for the Orcas at the time. 111 runs overall, nothing too flashy, but he also took 5 wickets, and he provides an off-spin option in this squad to help balance things out.
That was not the direction I thought you were going to go in, Peter. Surely you said captaincy change midway through the year, and I was like, oh, we were on the same page. I had this man at 7-2, and then you threw the curveball at me, and so now I'm stuck. Do I take the last overseas pick? And I just feel that there's another overseas outside of Jason Holder that has to be on the team, and maybe I hold off. And maybe you pick Jason Holder later, but I'll hold off for now. And I'll bring in a domestic at number 8. I'll bring in Harmeet Singh. When they started using him more in Dallas, and I thought he was quite brilliant. He did have one thanks for coming, but what he does with the ball, you need some spinners in this tournament, and there aren't many better domestic bowling options than Harmeet Singh.
Now, I will go with Shadley Van Skalkvik. Shadley, leading wicket taker on the 2 sides, 14 wickets at an average of 26.07, and the few times he did come out to bat, 61 runs off 53 deliveries in 5 innings coming in late down the order. I was very impressed. He's somebody who's been a quiet contributor for the USA national team. Not necessarily a match winner, but somebody who's a very steady presence. And the fact that he stepped up so well in MLC this year after previously getting limited opportunities by comparison, I was quite impressed with the way he stepped up on what was collectively a very underwhelming squad. He stood out in a good way for the Knight Riders.
I'm still in this position because I'm between 2 overseas names, and I feel like I am going to take the last overseas. It's just which one am I going to go with? And the one thing about me, I like to have two spinners in my team and two recognized spinners. I know Raza gives me a bit of off spin, but I'm looking at the Knight Riders leading wicket takers. I'm looking at their second leading wicket taker on the season, and I just don't feel like I can leave him out. I'm going to go with Devir Sangha. He's missed a couple of games. He, was inconsistent in terms of being in the team, but when he was in the team, he was phenomenal. Picked up wickets. You get a genuine spinner in there to complement Harmeet Singh, and I'll take the last of the overseas spots. So Jason Holder will miss out. It means Sikandar Raza will captain the side, but I think we've picked up another spinner. And with one spot left, Peter Della Penna, it feels like you got to go pace because right now bowling pace, we've got Dre Russ and we've got Shadley Van Skalkvik. And beyond that, we've got three spinners up our sleeve. So where do you go, Mr. PDP?
Well, I know he had a night to forget today with none for 60, but I felt like Cornet Dry, if you looked at the totality of performances over the course of the season, I would give Cornet Dry the nod over Jesse Singh. Cornet Dry, 9 for 60 tonight. In spite of that, 3 other games, he took 5 wickets. His collective average, 32.80. I thought you could make a case he was actually slightly hard done by. Ali Khan maybe a little bit out of form this season when Ali Khan was getting opportunities over him. Ali Khan finished with 4 wickets in 6 matches at an average of 63. And I thought Cornet Dry outperformed him in the opportunities he did get. And I also thought Cornet Dry outperformed Jesse Singh. Jesse Singh, 9 matches. So he got way more opportunities. He only played all but 1 game. 9 matches, 5 wickets at an average of 56. As a first-round pick, that's not good enough. And I felt Cornet Dry on a team where he had limited opportunities stood out to me as somebody who was very good at making use of them. So in with limited options available, we're not exactly scraping the bottom of the barrel, but with the players available, if you take the domestic versus overseas balance into consideration, I feel like Cornet Dry's got to take that last spot.
No, I don't mind that at all. And a couple of the other guys that are just on the outside looking in for the team we've picked. Guys like Saif Badar, Kyle Mayers would be in that list, Jason Holder, Jesse Singh, as you mentioned. Even a Heinrich Clausen, you could make a case with the one big innings, 142 runs for him on the year. And we'd love to hear your team that didn't make the playoffs. So if you've got 11 fours or just a couple of names you think we might have missed, who would you plug them in for? Let us know down below, or just let us know however you can get in contact with us. But also, don't forget to subscribe, follow us, and rate us on Apple and Spotify. And if you want to get in touch and choose your team that didn't make the playoffs, drop us an email at uscricketnow@gmail.com.
US Cricket Now is a Viral Tribe Entertainment and Square Cut production. We'll be back late night on Tuesday, early into the hours of Wednesday. I'll be there in Texas rejoining Aaman. The tag team will be back in action in person once again from Grand Prairie Stadium as we round up all the action from that very highly anticipated first playoff match between Texas Super Kings and Washington Freedom, with the winner going straight to the tournament final. But until Tuesday night, that'll do it for this edition of US Cricket Now. See you next time.